Welcome to Live 365 Dark Matter Radio. Tonight I'm coming to you as Ambassador Obsidian Thunder. And I'm making a statement to the world coming from the Indigenous nations of North America. And I want this to be plain because we are at the crossroads of ending all civilizations on the planet. And unfortunately, the land that I'm on right now, this government that is actually controlling this land, could be very well possible or responsible for causing such a dilemma to happen. I have to get you to understand that the so-called African American, and I'm talking to the people of the world, I'm talking to the people in Iran, Russia, China, India, Africa. I'm talking to the people in Saudi Arabia, Oman, Syria, Lebanon. I'm talking to the people in Canada, Mexico, all of South America, Central America, so-called Central America. I'm talking to all the Ukrainians, Australians, and everyone on the other side of that mountain ridge that is now called Europe. The indigenous nations of North America, the actual Aboriginal Amarukan Indians from Tamaria, do not agree with any wars, any attacks of any people within your system that have a right to be sovereign. Just like we have never capitulated, agreed with the attacks that happened on our civilization when the whole world came and attacked us here. I'm not going to get too deep into that right now. That will be for our next show. But it's important for you to know that the misclassified beings of Tamaria, the Amarukans, of what you now call the Americas, are not in favor, disagree with, and vehemently against any attack on any sovereign nation, such as Iran. We believe that the American government should stand down. And they should also stand down from the demands of what we now call Israel. We don't believe in the Greater Israel plan, as well as we don't agree with the corporate Greater American plan. We believe that people within this system have a right to be sovereign. I need you to understand that the Aboriginal, the true Aboriginal American Indians, the original beings of what you now call the Americas, Tamari, are not from Africa. never were from Africa, and don't agree with any of these history books, for most of you already know what the true history is. So for every original nation that was established in the system that was here before they came, most notably 1942, we disagree with and strongly advise, demand the United States government to stand down from any attacks on beings on this so-called planet Earth. Any civilian that is being attacked, destroyed, and killed is not, has never been a part of this war. We understand that government to government disagreements will happen. But this disagreement here is a provocation that should have never, ever existed. I want you to give you an understanding that we, the original beings of the Americas, fall under the UN Resolution 1514-1654 decolonization, as well as constitutional treaty law and international human rights treaty bodies ICERD/ICCPR UNDRIP. The U.S. Code section that identifies domestic terrorism in or is 18 U.S.C. and 2331S. This section of the U.S. Code is part of Title 18, which covers crimes and criminal procedures. The Patriot Act, passed after September 11, 2001 attacks, so-called attacks, amended this section to outline what is considered domestic terrorism. For too long, my people, our people, the people of the Aboriginal or the original Amarukans, American Indians, have been treated as below human. They've been reclassified, beaten, lynched, prosecuted. Cities have been bombed, torn down in the same fashion as Gaza. So we understand here on our land, as prisoners of war, of a war that has never ended against my people, our people, the original beings of the Americas, we understand what it means for innocent people to be blown to bits. Because we have been, again, lynched, prosecuted, robbed of our history and the dignity. Many good people from the United States and the international community have fought to change this reality, and passing resolutions, declarations, and laws to put a cease to our abuse. This is something that we truly, truly do appreciate. And we cannot forget our appreciation to the Iranian government in 1979 when they acknowledged our plight, who we are, what we've been through, and let the hostages that was of American Indian descent Aboriginal American Indian descent, of the original population of the Americas, they let them go and said that they were not part of this war. A similar statement has been made by the previous supreme leader of Iran, who was killed by Israeli and United States forces in the bombing. So we have to appreciate the support that we got and that we have from this population that is now being threatened to be bombed out of existence. And for the love of these great individuals, their spirit, souls, and the need to restore and maintain peace on our land, the land of Tamari. The land is what they now call the Americas. We demand that the laws and resolution and the declarations be respected and enforced so justice can finally prevail. See, our politics and what we ask for as a people, as a being of people, is safe passage in our right to return back to the system upon which we came out of before they committed the war on us, slaughtered our people. They tried to do the same thing and bomb us out of existence. We know our history. We know who we are. The day of awakening is over, and the time of remembering is not only now, but the progression of walking into the being of people of who we are is today. Is the time that we share right now, today. This is the reason why we're doing this and making the statement, because we need to let you know, we need to let the world know that the Aboriginal true Americans, the American Indians, do not support this war, do not agree with it, and want it to end immediately. All hostilities in the Middle East need to stop. I call on Saudi Arabia to think about what they're doing, even though they may have an eternal dislike for Iran. Bahrain, Jordan, and any other Middle Eastern country that may be hosting the beings of violent intention towards a population that hasn't done anything to the people who are attacking them. We need to live in a world that is just. We need to live in a world that is safe. And I say this to the President of the United States right now. The reason why you were elected and the reason why the Aboriginal Indigenous beings got behind you the way that they did was because of the promises, the campaign promises that you alluded to by stopping illegal immigration, stopping endless wars, fixing the economy of the states, and making sure that quote-unquote America was great again, meaning that you're going to be concentrating on the problems of America, not the problems of Israel or any other country outside of the boundaries of the state. I urge you to do what you set out to do. As difficult as it may be, we urge you to do just that. We put out a press release for our own people because of the conditions of prolonged captivity and prisoner of war status that we share today here in the Americas, the original indigenous beings. We put out a White People Part 2 describing the same thing. Our principal chief, our tribal marshals, our judiciary had this brief statement. The United States, its subordinate states, municipal agents, and legal allies continue to disturb the great law of peace, having failed to adhere to the basic principles and guidelines on the right to remedy and restoration of reparations for victims of gross violence of the international human rights law and serious violations of international humanitarian law, thereby perpetuating a continuum of human rights abuse against the Aboriginal peoples of the Americas, of the land that was once called Tamari. Central to this abuse is the systematic usurpation of indigenous sovereignty carried out through forced legal displacements, racial reclassification, administrative erasure, land occupation, denial of political self-determination, surveillance imposed citizenship, cultural destruction, fragmentation of our nations, our governance, and a coercive governance from the state of the corporate America. These conditions imposed upon our people constitute a prolonged captivity arising from an unresolved armed conflict and illegitimate occupation of my land, of our land. Under international humanitarian law, these conditions establish our status as protected persons subjected to treatment, functionality, and equivalent to prisoners of war and civilian internees. The Aboriginal American Indian, what you call the African American, black person of the Americans, are actually prisoners of war turned into a slave status. We are prisoners of war. So we understand what a lot of these sovereign countries in this system are going through. We understand about the triad, the quote-unquote New World Order, and the system that they want to put in. We understand why you're going to a system like BRICS to get out of the SWIFT system, which they don't like. We understand that. We also understand that any sovereign nation that tried to leave the SWIFT system was systematically destroyed in the way that they're promising to destroy the Iranian people. It has come a time now that we cannot tolerate these things in the land upon which we live in. It has come a time now that every government on the planet seek a different way of doing things. And the doing things is not by blowing each other up as though you're troglodytes, as though you're Tamahu first coming out of the caves, Flugerods, or any other type of quote-unquote non-civilized being, and acting in that matter shows you how non-civilized this whole entire system truly is. This is a system of a parasitic, cannibalistic, abusive nature, run by soulless characters that is trying to take the very, very being out of the people that live on all the lands that we're responsible for. So these things are unjust. And in this statement from the Indigenous nations of North America, we say the violence must come to an end. For we are a people that understand it all too well. For the Indigenous nations of North America, and we respect to every chief that is out there, every leader that is out there, and to the nations of the world, I say to you, let us pursue a passion of peace. Let us end the violence on this planet. And let us become a people that help protect each other, support each other, feed each other, and not poison each other. For I see a world different from the world that you guys created. I see us entering back into a system of love, harmony, and nature. As the ambassador of the Indigenous nations of North America, as the ambassador for the indigenous beings and Indians of the Amarukans in the land of Tamari, Great Grand Rising to us all.